Stop me if you heard this before. Capcom had an ambitious plan for a much anticipated entry in the Mega Man series. They were going to evaluate fan input to guide the creative choices made in the game, giving them an unparalleled degree of involvement to date in game development until the project was unceremoniously cancelled. I see you too know the tale of PS2 era Mega Man X9. Wait, what? Ah, 2020. COVID continues to rage through the world one day at a time, and we are still waiting on that sweet entry number 9 for the X series. Remember when Capcom wanted to hear from us what to do with the game? When it would come out in the PS2 generation? What do you mean you never heard about this? It's just fact that Capcom set up a mailbag with a major fan site to filter suggestions for the game. But I get what you might be feeling right now. I sound like a snake oil salesman, since apparently Capcom decided to listen to fans in such a major way, and I never heard anything like that until now. I know how you feel, but there's somebody else whose recollections line directly with mine. And this guy's name is, Protodude? Maybe you've heard of him. So I'm going to let him take this one.
So from my recollection, it was around the summer of 2005, and the X8 and Command Mission were already a thing, they're already on the store shelves. So it was around August, the Mega Man Network announced that the Mega Man X team in Japan would soon be meeting to discuss the future of that series. The information that they gathered from Japan was they were looking at producing Mega Man X9 and Mega Man X Command Mission 2. Now, they were going to do something quite unprecedented here at the time. They wanted to gather fan feedback of what elements and things they would like to see in those games. And Capcom wanted to go through the Mega Man Network to basically conduct a survey from fans, from readers, what we would like to see. From my understanding was, nothing was completely set in stone. They were just kind of looking for some feedback from fans. But it was more or less like a brainstorming session to kind of get an idea of what fans expect from both games. So what the Mega Man Network did was they set up an email address where anyone with an idea for something they'd like to see in those two games could submit to the Mega Man Network. And the Mega Man Network staff would then kind of act as a filter. They would go through the ideas and find ones that were not necessarily good or bad, but ones that are a bit more feasible to what Capcom were looking for. So the Mega Man Network, they accepted feedback for several weeks.
Now that's a whole story, isn't it? I wish we had someone from back in the day who could tell us how did this even come to be. Wait, we do? Awesome! Here's former Mega Man Network staff Jaxel stating how it happened.
Yeah, without getting too lengthy, the short of it is that Capcom at the time, which I want to say was about 2004, 2005-ish, somewhere around there, was looking to reach out to their fans a lot more. They really wanted to get more involved with their fans, what their fans thought, put their finger on the pulse a little bit more, and we're kind of trying to figure out how to go about that. So they were approaching, different fan sites at the time. There were different people affiliated with the fan bases, maybe not necessarily the fan sites, but people that, they knew had a lot of contact in their communities where they could gather a lot of thoughts and opinions. And, it was a very noble idea at the time. I'm not sure we quite achieved it 100%, what their goal was. I think Capcom Unity was eventually the achievement of all that, and it was primarily, some people with marketing, that would take the information and pass it along to, I guess, whoever they deemed necessary, or who was ever involved in the project. I don't know where it went whenever we spoke to them. But that was really the genesis of it.
You might be wondering what sort of response did the mailbag get. Well, apparently emails easily numbered in the hundreds, maybe thousands, according to Jaxel.
That's what I want to say. I want to say it was somewhere in the thousands. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, it just the reaction we got. I definitely was not prepared for that. I do remember being quite overwhelmed. I remember logging in. It's like, geez, we got 100 more emails. I swore we checked this thing like an hour ago. How do we have this many more emails unchecked? It was a little bit crazy.
Looking back at the info we had then, Capcom didn't ask the fans to give input related to the 8 bosses because they wanted to do another mailbag. At least one more, as we can see, dealing with that very specific subject. Seeing how boss design contests were a staple of the Mega Man franchise from its early days, that makes a whole lot of sense. And just think about it. They seemed to want to go all in with this. Separate mailbags, separate fan input, just like they did with the Mega Man Legends 3 project. In the same threads, Jaxel said Capcom seemed to be looking into establishing links between the Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero series as well. With all the data gathered, we can infer some characteristics this possible X9 could have featured as well as some of the staff involved. The Mega Man Official Complete Works 25th Anniversary Edition artbook, Tatsuya Yoshikawa, who was the lead artist for both Mega Man X7 and Mega Man X8, mentions he had even met the person who would be the planner for Mega Man X9. Given how the producers were releasing next games in rapid fire ever since they brought the series back from limbo with Rockman X Cyber Vision in 2000, it's reasonable to assume they might have been the same people involved with X8 as well. It's a safe bet to assume Tatsuya Minami, who had been producer ever since Cyber Mission, would stay on board. Tatsuya Kitabayashi, who joined in X7 as an assistant producer, had become a full-fledged producer with Command Mision and X8, and went on to produce Maverick Hunter X as well as Powered Up, so he would likely remain on the producer's chair. He was also the producer for Mega Man Legends 3. So, what would the game be about and what would it look like? Given the huge emphasis on the cliffhanger from X8, it's reasonable to assume the game would have dealt with that, especially since it would keep a tighter schedule than the 10-year-long hiatus we have right now. We also have Jaxel's comment that they were looking to tie things into Zero somewhat, which is really not all that juicy as it may sound, all things considered. Inti Creates was already giving a couple of shoutouts to the current direction the X series took by talking about Eurasia when they got to Zero 4, and including Command Mission's final strike in their Mega Man Zero drama tracks. It would probably be some loose continuity cloth stitched like that. At the time it was very popular fan theory that the 10 Shining Arms from the Zero series could be comprised of the weapons of the Giga City crew, so things like that. A wink, a nudge. So, in my opinion, you shouldn't expect any crazy full-on L-Force shenanigans like cyber elves flying across the battlefield, passing through each other, casually materializing into some tanks before they drop from the air and die. I mean, really, it's lines of code with personalities becoming energy tanks and dying as a result. Ow! Anyway, as for how it would look, it probably would have used X8's designs moving forward. Inafune produced Maverick Hunter X, and his only comment about the art style changes from X8 says he wanted to give the team freedom to do what they wanted, and if he had come on board, he would have managed the project in every aspect. Seeing how when he produced Maverick Hunter X the art style immediately became more familiar, it's reasonable to assume that a possible X9 would have kept X8's streamlined designs, as Yoshikawa had wanted to redesign things like that even during X7, but he had been brought late into the project. He also said the redesigns in X8 also came due to the staff having issues developing the game with the usual designs, and with an expected to be short development cycle from the sounds of it, changing things up again would cost the development team more time than not. But okay, I hear you asking. All this about a possible X9 that would look like this, feature that, probably have this key personnel working on it, is all well and good. But what's this talk about Maverick Hunter X rising from its ashes?
So the Mega Man Network, they didn't share the information that fans gave them, but while we never heard from X9 or Command Mission 2, September of that year, Maverick Hunter X was announced at the Tokyo Game Show.
Well, wouldn't you know it? A fair bit of the feedback from the mailbags ended up being incorporated in Maverick Hunter X itself. Are you wondering how I know so much about Capcom having a final report they read and whatnot? Well, I was there, helping sort through stuff. Did that subvert your expectations? So, you see, 3 of the biggest sticking points from the amassed feedback were as follows. Fans wanted more connectivity between Classic and X series. Fans wanted to play as a villain. This really popped up more than you can imagine, trust me. And fans wanted to see more of characters who became one note. Of particular note, they requested Vile and Dynamo a lot. My boy Gate, he was like a close third, but as a result he didn't make it into the final report. One day, Gate. One day. So okay, does that remind you of anything? Anything at all? You know, more connectivity, playing as a villain, and flashing out characters who show up and die? Yeah, I have nothing. What could I possibly be going on about? Although the final report has been kinda lost at this point until further notice, you don't have to take my word for it. I wasn't one of the cool kids who had direct contact with Capcom. It's because I'm Brazilian, isn't it? But I was helping sort through the mailbag in any case. And Jaxel's recollections line up directly with mine as well.
I do remember we all talked about that extensively. I don't know if that was a happy coincidence or they actually didn't incorporate our feedback, but I do remember one of the more interesting requests that a lot of people made was that they wanted to see Vile as a playable character. You know, they wanted more backstory for Vile, wanted more Vile. So I remember we put that in there, and lo and behold, Vile was the only other playable character, and he got a lot of backstory and a lot of screen time. So, like I said, I don't know if that was a happy coincidence or that was a result from us. I don't know. Maybe it was from us, maybe it was not. But I will say this: if it was a result of our feedback, I kind of feel a little bit bad because they gave us everything we wanted on a silver platter with Maverick Hunter X, and the game still didn't do well. So I do feel kind of bad if that legit did come from us and they worked that hard to integrate what the features we shared with them. I mean, I don't know, you almost feel like you took them in the wrong direction, so to speak, or misled them.
I have to diverge a little from Jax there, because I don't think it's the fans' fault. All this content was engineered to what they wanted to see in X9, and we also had Capcom testing the waters with the PSP as a result, so all of that very likely factored in, and it seems like Protodude agrees as well.
I do recall that there were several people who were hoping to see what would be X9 or Command Mission 2. The idea that Capcom are going backwards instead of forwards kind of rubbed people the wrong way. Not to mention, it was intended for PSP, and I definitely remember there were people who expressed that was a hard sell for them at the time. The console cost a little too much. They were hoping for, there were immediate hopes for a home console port to PlayStation 2 or even the PS3 at that time.
I know some people will say this can only be coincidence, and sure, that's perfectly fine to state. However, the marketing key personnel who were related with the X Collection and X9 efforts remained in the Maverick Hunter X staff. And not only that, Capcom really wanted to strengthen their foothold in the US for the Mega Man series. Mega Man X8 was released in the US first, which is why it lacks a more specific intro video the Japanese release got. and they even held a poll where you could vote for the game's cover art, though the differences were minimal and mostly dealing with a tint over the artwork. But at the time, though I'm having a little difficulty finding the specific posts right now, word on the information superhighway, the internet, was that they did it because the reception seemed to be improving overseas more than in Japan. People claimed the games were just selling more in North America than they did in Japan, X8 and Command Mision included. And add to that even before his days of Top Dog Capcom executive, Inafune said it was very important to sell a lot of copies in the West. And all of this was feedback filtered directly from Western audiences. But alright, I get what you wanna know. Why did they change plans? Why they jump to Maverick Hunter X from X9? Because of one man. KJ Inafune. In Inafune's own words, he swerved things from an X9 to remakes because he wanted to teach the team what makes Mega Man tick. Inafune was absent from the X series starting with Cyber Mission, only being consulted, if that much, granting him a special thanks credit for almost all the titles of that time. There's a lot you can read in about Inafune's specific statements there. You can definitely construe it as a dig against the guys doing the games until he came back. But that's a subject for another video I really want to make, because there just might have been a bit of a power struggle ongoing at that point between development teams. Regardless of what you think of Inafune's opinion there, I think you can see what he means. I was sifting through some of the suggestions sent for X9, and I saw someone asking to be able to collect heart tanks through the stages. I kinda chuckled, because this person's asking us for an absolute mainstay to be what already is. And then it dawned on me, there are no heart tanks in X8. Go grind medals, I suppose. In short, that guy's a genius, on point, and I'm a drooling buffoon. I guess you can factor most of Maverick Hunter X's conservative leanings on the fact Inafune had become a producer once again. But he seemed concerned about where the series was headed, and it seems he's not alone in that.
Looking back too, I think that was also a time when Capcom was getting a little out of control with how many titles they were releasing. You know, they had Battle Network going on. They were releasing a bunch of Game Boy titles. I know they had, Rockman and Forte out on the Game Boy Advance, I believe. They had a lot of irons in the fire. That was an area in the phase where they were getting a little bit carried away, and having a hard time controlling the quality of the games. And I kind of, in some ways, am glad that we got Maverick Hunter X instead, because looking back on it, I think if they had tried doing 2 X-related titles, I think that might have stretched the team a little bit too thin.
I personally think Maverick Hunter X is the most consistent game engine and looks-wise from the entire PS2 generation of X titles. But that's me. Inafune publicly stated he considered remaking Maverick Hunter X up to X3, but insiders said maybe it could go up to Maverick Hunter X6. Seems a little excessive if you ask me, but that's what we heard. As a matter of fact, the curious last link in all of this is that even that first X collection apparently was part of some power struggling of its own. Although this is also something we have difficulty finding archived traces of now, there were talks that a short movie, something like 7 minutes long, would be included in the collection. Then, if you look at the first Maverick Hunter X trailer released, you find this.
Completely forgot about the trailer just now until you mentioned it. But yes, the original trailer for Maverick Hunter X had a very, very different looking Day of Sigma. I mean, it looked like it was content that was being created for something else. And I do remember very vaguely hearing that the X Collection was going to have some kind of special prequel or, you know, some kind of special thing that would give more backstory to X's origins. I remember something like that. So I kind of wonder if they did end up originally planning that for the X Collection, got started off, you know, with some very early animation cells, and then ended up just scrapping that and redoing it for the PSP's aspect ratio and so on and so forth. I'd actually forgotten about all that until just now. You're jogging my memory.
Some of the further alleged struggles indicated that the collection had more material produced for it, down to X4 being redubbed and X6 finally being dubbed, and that all content was shelved for later use in the rest of the Maverick Hunter X series if it ever happened.
Myself and actually Protodude, shout out to you, Brian, did talk with a few ex-Capcom employees, I mean several years after the fact, and according to them, very little, if any, exclusive content for that collection was generated. You know, the plans were scrapped pretty early on. You know, there was no material that sounded like it was finished. And of course, Lucas confirmed that too. You know, Lucas said, no, we ended up not recording any of that. And I want to say Lucas said he, I can't remember what he said on Twitter. I'll have to go back and look at it, but I want to say that he was put on notice that they might be recording, but then nothing came out of it or something like that. But either way, he's pretty firm that he did not record any new dialogue for those games.
Now that was a lot. But now that we've closed the book on X9...
And I'll tell you something funny too about X9. You know, there's been plenty of times when it's almost happened. You know, not just you know, in 2004, 2005. There's so many other times.
Wait, what?
But I do recall, you know, after Mega Man 9 was released, which of course was an unexpected hit, I do recall that they were toying with the idea of creating X9 at that point. They were kind of looking at cashing in on the retroness, and they were thinking, it never came to fruition, but they were thinking about doing like possibly a 16-bit, you know, Mega Man X9. You know, kind of, you know, going back to that retro thing that Mega Man 9 did. They were looking at maybe, well, let's do this with the X series too. And of course, it never came to fruition. They ended up instead going with Mega Man 10 instead of doing that, obviously.
I'm sorry.
And then I recall another time when I know that for a little while, I don't know how long it lasted, but I know that the comeback title for Mega Man, you know, they were looking at the classic series, and they were also looking at doing an X sequel to be the big comeback game. And of course, they ended up going with Mega Man 11, as they should have. That was the correct title for Mega Man's big comeback. But I know that in the very, very early stages, the X series was also considered. So, you know, X9's been on the radar plenty of times. It just, for whatever reason, the timing has not been right, and the stars just haven't lined up properly. But they have thought about it. If we've considered it and we've thought about it, they've thought about a way to make it work too. And sometimes it just doesn't. You know, things happen.
Unfortunately, we don't have any further info that would allow us to speculate on, other than this. Mega Man 9 was the right game at the right time, no matter what one might think of it. It made a nice buck on a budget, since any previous Mega Man game had to contend with loads of voice actors to be cast, intricate sprite artwork, or 3D models, and even full motion video. So it feels like a very safe bet to assume this 16-bit X9 would use the SNES sprites to the letter for X and 0, and thus discard the X8 design so they don't have to resprite two whole existing characters. As for the Mega Man 11 era pitch, most of what we can assume is that it would be 3D, like Mega Man 11 was. But now that we've closed the book on all possible X9s that never were, I think a fitting note to end the video on is letting someone who, back in the day, contributed their suggestions to the mailbag. Take it away one more time.
So, a while ago, I went all the way back to that summer of 2005, and I found in my sent folder my submission for X9 and Command Mission 2 that I sent to the Mega Man Network, and it's quite terrible to read nowadays. But I said Dear Capcom, I'm very pleased to know that you want some fan support with X9 Command Mission 2. I do have some ideas for the future of the X series. First off, I personally loved X8, but I didn't feel like an X game for one reason: Axel. I was never too big on Axel, and I personally feel he has ruined the X series ever since X7. Granted, people, I think I was, I don't know, like 13 around this time. Anyway, so if you do make X9, could you do something with Axel, like give him his own version of the Zero virus and turn him against the Maverick Hunters? You can call it the Lumine virus. It would tie into the ending of X8 perfectly. Let's see, for Command Mission 2, I said something along the lines of... I said that Command Mission 1 didn't really feel like an X game. It felt more like, and these are my own words, a Final Fantasy ripoff. Now what you can do is make a real-time battle system instead of a turn-based gameplay. Next, each character should specialize in something. X should be the character for firepower, and maybe Axel would specialize in copying enemies' abilities and attacks. I also said I think you should have a new character, a female Reploid, that can summon mechanoids. So I guess that was supposed to be like Final Fantasy Summoner job. Marino should come back. She should still be a thief. Massimo should be the slow but tough fighting style guy. Cinnamon should stick with healing, but she was really useless with regular attack. I hardly used her. Second, Command Mission had some of the most beautiful backgrounds I have ever seen in a video game, but I couldn't gaze at them because the camera only moved in 360-degree angle. So basically, I was asking for a free camera. And finally, I said the Command Mission 2 should link the X series to the Zero series. Command Mission 2 should be the beginning of the Elf Wars. This would allow you to bridge the X series into the Zero series the way Inufune-san intended. And I ended my letter with, I'm glad to hear that you are considering X9 and Command Mission 2. The Mega Man franchise is my favorite franchise of video games. I'd play a new X game over something like Halo any day. It's been an honor to give you my suggestions, and I hope I have helped. Thank you, Capcom. Sincerely, Brian.
Well, as long as I have her attention. Unfortunately, the whole COVID situation has impacted the situation in my household by a lot. While gaming is my passion, it definitely isn't my livelihood. I'd love to tackle more subjects like these, but the research, interview collection and video editing take a lot of time and effort, and I can't afford to do these for free. If you would like to contribute a monthly donation, we have some links in the description where you can help chip in, and we have some tiers in case you would like to offer input or influence the next videos we make. I would like to branch out and analyze game design as well, so if that sounds interesting to you, we can definitely use your support. If you're able to help, I would be very grateful. Any money would assure that I can actually take my time doing game-related projects. Who knows, with your support, maybe I can actually go somewhere with my passion. If you're short on cash yourself, just liking, sharing and subscribing already helps a lot. So be sure to do all these, because otherwise YouTube won't let people know this video exists. And much more than anything, thanks a lot for watching.
You persistent guy, but your life ends right now.